We would like to thank you for taking the opportunity to view this video, which will provide an overview of the Wappinger Central School District 2021-2022 budget. This is a superintendent's forum known as ABC, a budget conversation. And prior to the presentation, just a reminder of the mission of the Wappinger Central School District is to empower all of our students with the competencies and confidence to challenge themselves, to pursue their passions, and to realize their potential while growing as responsible members of their community. Obviously, these are unprecedented times. These are challenging times. These are difficult times. I would like to thank Ms. Kristen Crandall, our Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Business Development. She will be joining our presentation toward the end. I would like to recognize and thank members of our Board of Education, President John Lumia, Vice President Keith Odoms, Trustee Marie Johnson, Trustee Peggy Kelland, Trustee John Morgan, Trustee Linda Rappaport, Trustee Robert Rubin, Trustee Eddie Sloshower, and Trustee James Spencer. In addition to that, the members of the Senior Staff Administration, Darren Lokema, our Assistant Superintendent for Compliance and Information Systems, Dr. Michelle Cardwell, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Kristen Crandall, who I mentioned before, our Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Business Development, Richard Zipp, our Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services and Accessible Education, and Ron Broas, our Director of Facilities and Operations. In addition to that, our District Clerk and Secretary to the Superintendent, who always does a phenomenal job, Miss Alberta Pedro. Those are members of the Wappinger Central School District team. So what is a school district budget? Well, it provides for the educational needs of our students while maintaining compliance with New York State. It's the annual spending plan of the district. It's an aggregate view of the financial numbers that drive the district's operations for the following school year. And it is created in alignment with goals established annually by the Board of Education. In addition, it's more than a collection of numbers. Again, it reflects the mission and core values of the Wappinger Central School District community. Annual budget, it's based on a number of different items. Recommendations from the buildings, recommendations from the district offices, recommendations from the Board of Education, and recommendations from our community. The Board of Education adopts a budget in April. This year, it will be April 19th of 2021. That is put forth before the voters on the third Tuesday in May, which this year will be May 18th of 2021. Property tax cap, you hear about it all the time. What is it? Well, in June of 2011, New York State officials enacted a law that limited the increase in property taxes for municipalities and school districts. Chapter 97 of the laws of 2011. The first year the tax cap legislation was enforced for school districts was during the 2012-2013 school year. And while this is often labeled as a 2% tax cap, it's misleading in that the law does not limit a property tax increase to 2%. You will see that it has varied since its inception in 2012-2013. The law does, however, require 60% voter approval if the proposed levy exceeds a specific amount called the tax levy limit in the calculation. The recommended superintendent's budget that will go before the Board of Education will not attempt to increase the tax cap. So how is the property tax calculated? A number of different steps need to be taken to determine what the allowable tax levy is. The first step, what was the prior year tax levy? Steps 2 and 5, application of factors for growth as well as the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. The addition and subtraction of current and prior items such as pilots or payments in lieu of taxes. That's steps 3 through 7. And then step 8 is the inclusion of items is calculated and in accordance with the legislation, such as the capital tax levy and the New York State retirement system adjustments. Frequently asked questions, they are ongoing, and we say to you, continue to send us questions that you have. Ms. Crandall will be providing the website information and the email is to how you can get those questions directly to us. Question 1, does the tax cap law mean school tax levies can't increase by more than 2%? As I mentioned before, it does not. Each district prepares their own tax levy calculation. It consists of 8 factors mentioned before. The 2% factor is only one of those 8 factors to consider in the calculation. What is the tax levy limit? The tax levy limit, highest allowable tax levy, that's before exclusions, that a district can approve and propose as part of its annual budget that requires 50% approval by the taxpayers. The law does allow for some exceptions. Examples are exclusions such as some pension costs as well as capital expenses. What does the property tax law mean for your tax bill? This law does not limit the property tax rate increases to 2% or any other value. This law changed the parameters of what voter support is needed in order to pass a budget. Are district capital expenses for BOCES projects under the tax cap? The answer to that is no, they are not. So here's a historical perspective of the tax cap and what the tax cap has been within the Wappinger Central School District back from 2012-2013. You can see that the highest that the cap has ever been was in the 1920 school year, where it was just under 2.5%. You can see that the lowest rate has been what I believe was 0.12 back in 2016-17, and it fluctuates year to year. A lot of that has to do with the consumer price index. So the tax rate for 2021-2022, the tax cap rate is 1.23%. And again, that is derived from the 8-step formula that must be used to calculate the tax levy limit. The calculation, again, uses a growth factor that's based on the local tax base, as well as the consumer price index, or CPI. New York State aid. All school aid awarded to the state's 691 school districts is determined annually by an act of the state legislature through the state budget process. The state's funds come from 2 principal sources: general funds accounts, 88%, and lottery funds, which are 12%. The superintendent generally submits claims for aid to the Office of Management Services at the New York State Education Department. So the next slide will show exactly how that will be. Can we go to that breakdown, Ms. Crandall? Very good. So it's foundation aid, it's full day kindergarten conversion aid, universal pre-kindergarten, BOCES, high cost excess cost aid, and private excess cost aid. That's all driven by the New York State formula as well as enrollment data. Hardware and technology, software, library and textbook, transportation aid, building aid, that calculation is driven by the Wappinger Central School District expenses. And new, as a current law, the executive proposal for the 2021-2022 school year eliminates all reimbursable aids and rolls all aid into one category, which will be known as foundation aid. The Wappinger Central School District will be continuing to watch how this change develops, as well as many others and many unanswered questions at this point during the 2021-2022 budget process. Reimbursable aids, what are they? Textbook aids up to $58.25 per student. Instructional computer, hardware, and equipment aid, the lesser of the prior year, or $24.20 reimbursement per student times the resident average daily attendance aid ratio. Expenses eligible for those aid are used in serving the computer-based needs of the instructional program. It's important to note that in instances where the hardware serves as both instructional and non-instructional, only the instructional portion can be claimed for aid purposes. Obviously, those that are non-instructional cannot be claimed. Computer software up to just under $15 reimbursement per student based on the prior year expenses. Library materials aid up to $6.25 reimbursement per student based on prior year expenses. So 2021-2022 revenue sources in addition to New York State aid: payment in lieu of taxes, pilots, interest earnings, continuing education, tuition, foster care, health services billing, insurance recoveries, gifts and donations, and other miscellaneous items. The revenue summary from the 2020-2021 school budget is as follows. We had a budget of just over $245 million. 70.65% of that came from the 2020-21 tax levy. 22.84 came from state aid from 2020-2021. We had a 1.60 fund balance expenditure. Other revenue was 1.27%, and the total tax levy increase for the 2020-2021 school year was 3.64%. So at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Assistant Superintendent Crandall to talk a little bit more about how we're going to be moving through the process over the coming weeks and months. Ms. Crandall?
Thank you, Dr. Bonk. The district's website, wappingerschools.org, will provide the community with all of the budgetary presentations and supporting documentation that has been referenced in these presentations, a superintendent forum, a budget conversation. You can access it at our website, wappingerschools.org. You can send us an email at budget@wcsdny.org. You'll be able to see the details of upcoming presentations, as well as the presentations both for this budget cycle as well as previous years. Thank you, and I'll return it to Dr. Bonk.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crandall. And again, I would like to thank all of you for taking the time to view this presentation. Needless to say, our goal is to craft a budget that provides the services and programs that our students need and deserve, as well as being as fiscally responsible to the taxpayers as we possibly can. We look forward to working with you to achieve that goal. And again, thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. Take care and be well.